Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and More Wild. Today we're talking Longsword and our updated builds for the last base game update. With the release of Arch-Tempered Arkveld, a few key pieces from that set open up new options for some fantastic starting points, but obviously the peak potential of the weapon as well. Today we've got a mix of set to consider then, leaning into say the Scorcher benefits, latent power sets if you feel consistent in your gameplay, and a great set that's going to avoid both of those for pure effective raw if that's just what you want. Overall, Longsword remains in a top tier position compared to say other weapons, but just in general for Longsword it feels a lot smoother and consistent these days. Specifically against AT Arkveld, I just find it incredibly fun to counter spam and pump damage with the classic Spirit and Crimson combo whenever you get the chance. But when facing something that's higher pace, that's when I really enjoy this weapon. Before we begin though, credit and thank you to Josh as usual for putting together the sets and doing the math to back it up to bring us to these conclusions. And of course DTL Nor for the original data mine for what's possible with the RNG talismans in Wilds. So with that said, let's get into the builds. Starting with the weapon setup. For most of these weapons, it's going to be Gore Magala's Tyranny as the most important active skill, and then having Lord's Soul is a bonus, but not necessary in a lot of them as you'll see. In regards to the reinforcement bonus though, it is as before, attack boost EX times 2, sharpness boost EX, then the remaining attack boost lines, both level 3. You'll also notice, as usual, that you want to match the element. So with Arkveld being slightly vulnerable to dragon, that's what we're going to run against Arkveld. But if a monster's particularly weak to fire, then you want a longsword with fire, that kind of thing. But we don't invest in it beyond that. In regards to the decorations, as before, you want to slot in a total of 5 crit boosts to reach that cap, and then razor sharp and 1 level of handicraft for your sharpness management. Taking a look at our first set then, we have the Scorcher set that doesn't engage with latent power. I'll mention the no RNG version of it too, but basically latent power, it provides this fantastic power spike when it's up, but you will feel the loss when it's down. So as it becomes more consistent, as fights become longer, latent power's kind of value goes up. And you look at GOG and Arch-Tempered Arkveld, the fights are getting longer. But it doesn't matter whether that's true or not. If you find yourself inconsistent with your gameplay, such as when latent power's up, you get hit a bunch of times and aren't really attacking, well then its value's down. But if we're imagining optimal gameplay, latent power is very good. But even so, some people don't like it. So here's a version with Scorcher without latent power. Once again, we have Gore Magala's Tyranny on the weapon. For the armor set, we have the new Gamma Helm for Arkveld, GOG chest piece in beta, the Guardian Rathalos gloves in beta, the new Gamma Waist from Arkveld, and of course the Gore boots in beta. For our RNG talisman, it is a familiar sight, but there's plenty of options here. You want 3 attack boost and then a relevant skill on the back of that. In my case, that's Sweetness Exploit, but it could be Agitator, it could be Burst. Then based on whatever you had on your talisman, you rework your decorations. If you want a non-RNG version of this build, you just run the Agitator 3 talisman, I believe it's called the Challenger talisman, then just reorganize your decorations. Using these decorations, we achieve this skill list. So there's page 1 to look at, here's page 2. You'll note that we have Scorcher 1 active obviously, and the Gore 2 piece. With that, we're also going to have Arkveld's Hunger, thanks to the 2 piece, which is a bit of fun, just for some basic healing. And of course, Guts Tenacity. One thing to note is that you'll have a couple 1 slots to do with what you will, and unlike before, we're also going to have a bit of Flair. As a bonus, it's just some extra damage, especially after it's buff, and thanks to the Arkveld pieces, we just have a bit of element absorption, which isn't that important, obviously, but defensively, it does help with a bit of extra resistance, and then you might get a bit of more element on your longsword, which is just a reasonable bonus. Taking a look at the math then, just to see how it stands up, we have these sources of damage increases, getting us all the way to 440.86 effective raw. Then we have our affinity at 72% with 5 crit boost. So that brings you to 568 effective raw, which is very solid with other bonuses like the healing, the LE absorb, the flare. A lot of value here. Next though, we have the latent power engaging one that also is course using Scorcher. This will have more effective raw, and is indeed an effective raw increase from our AT Jin version. One warning or caveat to this one though is that you will need a slightly different weapon. Instead of having Gore Magala as one of your active skills, you want the Rathalos Flare, that Scorcher. The reason we're using Scorcher and it's relevant is just because it's like this extra burst of fire pops regularly throughout a fight, and that damage stacks up. And to fit that in this build, you will need it on your weapon, so fair warning on this set. Anyway, with the equipment we have the new Gamma Helm for Arkveld, the new Udra Gamma chest piece, the Guardian Rathalos gloves in beta, the ray gamma waist, and the regular ray beta legs. Once again, it's the same talisman concept, 3 attack power and then a bonus skill of relevance. This could be 1 latent power, it could be 1 weakness exploit, it could be 1 burst, it could be 1 adrenaline rush, and then you just sort your decorations based on that. If you want to use a no RNG talisman, then just use the Agitator 3 talisman, and again redecorate where needed to match the skill list. So here's the decorations to achieve this skill list. Here's the first page, here's the next page, which is just set bonuses. We got Scorcher, we got that latent power increasing thing from Ray Dow, and of course we also have Lord Soul, which as you can see, because of all the gamma pieces, means you don't even need Lord Soul on your weapon, which is handy. As a little note, I do have this on my paralysis weapon. You'd again ideally be matching element to the weakness, so Dragon for Arkveld. This is just a weapon that I have Rathalos Flare on to show you. In regards to the decorations to do this though, be aware that you'll have a couple free 1 slots to do with what you will. Divine Blessing's always a good option, Constitution, maybe some Dragon Resistance for Arkveld. But anyway, quick look at the math to compare. From these sources, we increased the base raw from 257 all the way up to 430.3. Then we have the affinity at 83% reliable. And again, the 5 crit boost. So that gets us all the way to 573 effective raw. That's 5 over the last set, just to show you that latent power is relevant. But of course, there are plenty of people who just don't like latent power. So alongside that, here's a set that doesn't actually use Scorcher as well. That should be easier to transition into from the previous sets. Now obviously in this set you'll have no Scorcher, so you'll miss out on the bursts of fire damage, which again has a respectable role in the overall damage, and with latent power having more value the longer the fight, and these fights being longer in general, these are things to keep in mind. But all the same, here's the set. Gamma Arkveld Helm, Gamma New Udra Chest, the new Gamma Gloves from Arkveld, the Blango Waist in Beta, make sure it's transcended, and the Gore Boots in Beta. Same concept for the Talisman, 3 attack boost, with the offensive slot going into attack boost, many 1 slots as you can get, and then the bonus skill of something that's relevant, 1 agitator, weakness exploit, and so on. Then you just reorganize your decorations based on what you have. And again, the no RNG version is the 3 agitator talisman, just rework your decorations based on what you go for. Using these decorations then, we achieve this skill list, so here's the first page, here's the next page. You can see that we've got the 2 piece of gore thanks to the gore set bonus on our weapon. We have haste and recovery again from the Arkveld pieces for the healing, and importantly, guts tenacity, which again from the set means you don't need Lord Soul as a bonus on your weapon to make the set work. And based on your RNG talisman, you might have some 1 slots to work with. In regards to the math then, we increased the base raw from 257 all the way to 440.87 from those sources. We have the 75% reliable affinity and 5 crit boost again. So that gets us to a very reliable 574 effective raw. That's 1 more than say a latent power Scorcher version. But again, when you're missing out on all kinds of benefits from the Scorcher procs or maybe flare and other stuff from the other sets, there are some trades here. But they're very competitive obviously. Last up then, if you want just a nice starting point, no RNG needed for the gore weapon or the talisman, a fantastic starting point for a longsword is going to be this set. So for that we have the Gamma Helm from the Arkveld Helm, the Gamma Chest Piece from New Udra, the new Nadia Gloves from her set that you can unlock this patch, which gives you a bit of the set bonus of gore, which is really cool. To match that we have the Gore Waist in Beta for the 2 piece, and lastly Duna Gamma Legs, giving you all 3 levels of Quick Sheath. And of course, the crafted talisman is the Agitator one for 3 levels of Agitator. With these decorations, we achieve this skill list. Here's the first page for you to look at. Here's the second page. As you can see, we've got the Gore 2-piece. I have a bit of the set bonus for that on my weapon, but you won't need that. And again, we have Guts Tenacity from the set. Let's take a look at the math to compare. 257 base raw increased again all the way up to 426.16 from these sources. We have 77% reliable affinity, and again 5 crit boost from the offensive decorations, so this brings us all the way to 557 effective raw, which is pretty fantastic for a no RNG version as a genuinely great starting point that I think is very approachable now. So if you are interested in longsword, this is going to be a great starting set. But yeah, there you have it. That's our final update for the base game of Wilds with Longsword. I hope this gives you a good few options and you can pick your starting point or whatever. But I feel like Longsword's been pretty spoiled in Wilds with all the new mechanics we got and options, and then the different quality of life stuff that was improved. I mean, at the start we were able to cancel Helmbreaker and had the various hyper armors, but it's the recent stuff like longer time to sit in special sheath, or you know, the way they address some of the input lag. And it's just a fun weapon to use, obviously, especially with the Arch-Tempered Arkveld just being so high pace. But yeah, for now, I hope that's been useful. Drop a like if it has been. I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.